If you guys are not familiar with the Navy's capture of the World War II German sub, the U-505, you ought to be. It is currently on display at Chicago's Museum of Science and Industry. It is a fascinating story. And tonight we've got Charles Lachman on, who recently published a book called Codename Nemo, The Hunt for a Nazi U-Boat, and the Elusive Enigma Machine. Fascinating book. I've been listening to the audiobook. I'm about halfway through it. If you are interested in the book, as we're talking to Charles this evening, the description of this video down below has a link, and you can pick it up on Amazon. You can find the audio version. So definitely check out the description below. Tonight with me, we've got Shane Stevenson, curator, Buffalo Naval Park in Buffalo, New York. John Epp, curator, USS Slater Museum in Albany, New York. And Connor Kilgore, always doing the levers and dials behind the scenes. If you've got any comments or questions, throw them up there. And Connor Kilgore, curator of the Transportation Museum of Thunder Bay, will try and handle them for you. My name is Ken Stano with the YouTube channel History X. Thanks for watching. We cannot do this without the viewers tonight. So like I said a few moments ago, submit your comments, submit your questions. Let us know what you want answered, and we'll try and get to them all. All right. So tonight we've got Charles Lachman joining us. Like I said a few moments ago, author. But before that, he was a reporter for the New York Post. He's a television producer, Pulitzer Prize nominee, and author of 5 books. First book was a novel called In the Name of the Law. Wrote a book called The Last Lincolns, The Rise and Fall of a Great American Family, followed by A Secret Life, The Lies and Scandals of President Grover Cleveland.
Oh, my God.
I know. You should read the description for this book, and it's going to make you want to check that one out next, Shane. And then, of course, after that, you've got a book called Footsteps in the Snow, which is about, as I understand it, a cold case that occurred during Christmas in the 1950s in Illinois. So that definitely sounds interesting. But the one that we're going to be talking to him about tonight, Codename Nemo, about the capture of the German submarine, the U-505. Now, for those of you that are also aware of Inside Edition, this guy is the executive producer, has been since 1995. So, I don't know. What do you think? This guy might know what he's talking about, right? So yeah, he's been the executive producer since 1995 for Inside Edition. So pretty heavy hitter here. Yeah. All right, Charles, thanks for joining us tonight.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Ken, and the other guys. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you answering the email that I sent you. The capture of the U-505 is definitely a fascinating subject. Like I said at the start of the video, if you're not familiar with the story, or if you're familiar with the story, but especially if you're not familiar with the story, you should definitely check it out. If you are familiar with the story, I think you're going to find Charles' book has a lot of interesting facts and details that you may not be aware of. So what I'm going to do is, Charles, we're just going to kind of jump right on in. And I guess the first question I want to hit you with when it comes to this story, because, you know, when you go through the books that we just talked about that you had published before, Lincoln, Grover Cleveland, I mean, none of them are World War II books.
That's right. This is my first.
But are you a World War II, I don't know, geek? Do you have an interest in World War II before this?
I know a lot about World War II. I've read a lot of books about the subject. It's my favorite subject to read for pleasure. And when I came upon the story of U-505, what attracted me to it were a couple of things. One, World War II. I was anxious to find a untold story of World War II. I was also interested in the technique of writing a nonfiction historical thriller. And when I delved deeply into this story, I realized I had the subject material that would create use all my writing skills, whatever I had, to really put together a compelling read. I wanted it fast-paced, present tense. I wanted people, the reader, to really experience the action almost as if they were there. And this was a golden opportunity to create a book of that nature.
As I understand it, well, it's a pretty interesting story of how you even became familiar with the U-505. Do me a favor and kind of tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I'll give you the Reader's Digest version.
Yeah.
My wife and I were visiting our daughter in Chicago. She had just started a new job. She's a TV reporter, and it was Thanksgiving. She was a little lonely. She had a new city to get to learn, and boyfriend wanted to keep the parents entertained and created this whole itinerary for us to follow. And the first stop on the visit was the Museum of Science and Industry. And he was all worked up about it. He had seen the exhibit before. And I couldn't believe that. I was very anxious to see it. So you enter this magnificent museum. It's breathtaking, really. And you go down 4 levels, and you enter a pen, and there you come upon this German U-boat from World War II. And I looked out at this thing, and I just couldn't believe that it was there. I couldn't believe that it was in Chicago, of all places. And I turned to my wife and I said, "This is my next book." And what followed was this kind of adventure of research and writing that really got me going.
Well, first of all, had you met the boyfriend before? Did this score points with you guys?
Sad to say, I had known the boyfriend. The relationship did not work out.
Oh, okay.
But I did get a book out of it.
Yeah, no, that works.
Maybe send him a complimentary copy, I guess.
I truly acknowledge him in the acknowledgement, so I've delivered.
And when that had to be, was that during the pandemic, in the middle of the pandemic when you did that?
It was in the beginning of the pandemic, yeah.
And so you've researched this book because it was just published a month ago. So you spent several years researching the book.
Oh yeah, well, and plus I had my full-time job and a half, so it was an ordeal, but it was also a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. I was just totally enthralled by the research process and finding stuff. Now, as you guys probably know, there have been some prior books written about U-505, but they're really written for U-boat. Can I use the word geeks?
Yeah, you sure can.
You know, these are tech-oriented books that I frankly didn't hold much interest to me. But what I found was a great human interest story that had not been told before, and that's what compelled me to do a deep dive, so to speak, into the book.
What was the first human interest story that you stumbled across? Because like I said, I'm about halfway through your book right now, and you have made, well, several characters out of the key players. Is that a fair assessment?
I think so, yes.
Yeah.
My first step was to reach out to the Museum of Science and Industry and get them to cooperate. And they very graciously agreed to open their archives to me. So I took some time off from my work at Inside Edition, my vacation time, flew back to Chicago, and they opened the doors of their archives to me. And if you guys have ever been to an archival department, it's really quite awe-inspiring. You see these boxes and boxes, dozens of boxes that they had pulled out of their cave, so to speak, and laid it all out for me. And you have to really treat it with literally kid gloves. You are given gloves, and you have to open up each of these precious documents very carefully, individually. And there I found the testimony, if that's the right word, of some of the surviving members of the 9 sailors who were on the boarding party that raided and seized U-505. And it was very compelling material. the material had not been used before, and that's when I realized that I had a dynamic human interest story that had not been told before.
We're and you're talking to three curators here, John, Shane, and Connor, all curators, so they know what the digging through an archival library is like. Were you by chance working with Vula over at the Museum of Science and Industry? I think she's the curator over there.
She's there. I know her. I was not working directly with her. I worked with Kathleen McCarthy, main contact there.
All right, and let's see. So you had checked out some of the other books on the subject, found out that they were, well, probably written for people like us, who are kind of, like you said, geeks on the subject. And I think you came across with what I would call to be more of a historical fiction approach.
Well, it's all nonfiction, and all the dialogue is as it was recounted by the participants. But it was, when people read the book, I think they come away thinking it reads like a fast-paced historical work of fiction, but it's all real. Everything really happened. Everything's been checked out, verified, and as I say, all the dialogue is as accurate as could be, as recounted by the participants. Some of the dialogue is actually lifted from tape recording made of the raid in 1944.
A tape recording?
Yeah, there was a tape recording made of the action on June 4th, 44.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Wow. What did you first find out about this guy?
Well, Captain Gallery, the naval officer on the left with the binoculars, is probably the hero of the book. He was he grew up in Chicago. He was the son of a very prominent Chicago lawyer. His mother worked as a writer for the Archdiocese of Chicago. He entered the Naval Academy after World War I, and he became a naval aviator, one of the first to graduate from the flight school in Pensacola. And he dreamed of one day commanding a great aircraft carrier in World War II. He dreamed about participating in these legendary battles of the Pacific, Guadalcanal, Midway, but fate and the Navy Department put him in the Atlantic. And he was a brilliant strategist. He was an innovator. He was a maverick, and he came up with the idea of capturing a Nazi U-boat. And the officer on the other side is Lieutenant David. He is the only recipient of the Medal of Honor in the Battle of the Atlantic. And he was the commanding officer of the raiding party. And he was the brave sailor who entered that hatch, that open hatch, after they had climbed on board this U-boat on the high seas, not knowing what to expect when he went down. Were the German sailors still on board? Were they going to cut him down? He knew he was facing demolition charges. Was it going to blow up and sink to the bottom of the sea? And for that action, he was given the Congressional Medal of Honor.
Because when you look at some of these pictures, you see the U-505. It's definitely foundering. And what's interesting is the German crew. Well, I'll let you tell the story. So when the U-505 was forced to the surface by depth charges, what happened next?
It's quite a story, and I'm asked all the time, how does this happen? How is it possible that you capture a Nazi boat in time of war in the Atlantic Ocean? How did it happen? Well, here's how it happened. Gallery's idea was to force the U-boat to surface, and with depth charges and hedgehog mortar shells, but not enough to destroy it, but just enough to force the sailors on board, the Germans, to abandon ship. And he did that by opening fire on the top deck on the hull of the U-boat with small arms fire from the task force of U.S. destroyer escorts and also from his fighter planes that were in the air. So the German, the order was given to abandon ship, and that's what the Germans did. They went up the hatch and they dove over the sides of the U-boat with their life preservers. And they were bobbing around on the surface of the Atlantic when the raiding party climbed aboard a whaleboat from the USS Pillsbury, and they zoomed across the ocean about 2,000 yards away. And again, not knowing what to expect at all. And they managed to climb onto this surface, the top deck of the U-boat. It was slippery from the pounding of the seawater and also from the blood spilled by the wounded and in one case killed German sailors. But they managed to climb aboard. And there's this anecdote in the book where Captain Gallery is observing this action with his binoculars from the USS Guadalcanal, his command post, and he couldn't believe what he was seeing. That this dream of his that he had been thinking about for more than 2 years was actually coming to fruition, and he called out, "Ride him, cowboy, hi-yo, Silver." The Lone Ranger, because it reminded him of a cowboy riding a bucking bronco, and
that's Gallery right there in the video.
That's Gallery, right? It
yeah.
shows how what an intriguing character he was. He knew that he was going to make naval history if he succeeded. So he had a film crew on board the Guadalcanal recording everything. So this extraordinary video that you're seeing is actually of the capture on June 4th, 1944 of the U-boat. Of course, this particular image was taken a couple of days later when all the action had kind of subsided, but everything was caught on tape, as they say now.
Do you think it was a gamble on his part? I mean, he came up with the idea, but what I and I haven't gotten this far in the book, but what I can't figure out or what I can't recall is whether or not he actually kind of pressed his luck or disobeyed. I don't want to say disobeyed orders, but I mean, if he didn't get the boat, do you think he would have been reprimanded?
No, I think if he didn't get the boat, he would have still succeeded in his mission of hunting and killing a Nazi U-boat. And had he not seized it and captured it and towed it back home, it would have been destroyed. So he would have gotten that accolade. In terms of, as I say, he is a maverick and was a maverick. And the people who really put their lives in jeopardy were the 9 volunteers on the raiding party. It was really a suicide mission that they were embarking on. They had no idea what to expect. They fully expected to shoot him out with the German sailors who they thought were still on board U-505, just waiting for them. And they were armed with Tommy guns and even hand grenades. But there was a tremendous amount of planning involved, and I have to emphasize a tremendous amount of luck that resulted in this historically successful mission.
Before we move on to one of the details, guys, any questions for Charles at this point?
Not really, no.
Okay, go ahead, Shane.
Yeah, so is their archive really extensive, or did they just not get a lot of stuff, or did they have? You said right, they're bringing the boxes in from the cave or whatever in the archive collection. But what did you have access to? And I'm interested in how the museum gathered all of this stuff up, because a lot of times that doesn't always happen. You have an artifact, but you don't get every story, and not every story, of course, but were there things that you wish they had that they didn't, or what was your eureka moment or your aha moment in the archive, if there was one?
Well, there were a bunch of them. Every time I turned a page, it was a, oh my God, turn a page, oh my God. It was breathtaking. It was thrilling. But that's what, historians do. They dig, and if they're lucky and they find, then it's a eureka moment. No, the archives they were so impressive. Thousands and thousands of documents. And the reason they had it is that, as I said earlier, Gallery was a Chicago boy, and he and his family had arranged for U-505 to be to sail in 1954 to the Museum of Science and Industry, and it's a not number one, but it's a top tourist attraction, certainly for the museum and for people who have seen the exhibit over the years. And in that, because of that, Gallery bequeathed all his papers to the museum, and it became the central depository for everything related to U-505. So even the German sailors who lived another day after they had been captured and sent to POW camps, when they became elderly gentlemen and the war was over and America was now a great ally of Germany, they would come to the U.S. On vacation on the 10th reunion, 20th reunion, 30th reunion. What would they do? They would go to Chicago. And they also left their own memories of what had happened. That way I was able to really do a kind of a cat and mouse story, both from the German point of view and from the U.S. point of view, which gave a lot of intrigue and a lot of tension to a story that doesn't have a dry moment.
When they first the 9 sailors climb on board, of course, like I said, the submarine's looking like this, and they have to climb on board and stop the flooding.
Right.
What did you come across in the archives, or what did you learn about this particular piece of equipment?
Well, that's the sea strainer.
Yep.
And what happened was that when they went down the hatch, the first order of business was to secure the ship to the boat and make sure there are no German sailors left on board. And once that had happened, they quickly saw that there was a giant hole in the boat. There was a huge gush of water going up about 5 feet. And as you see from the photos, the U-boat was already floundering. It was half submerged, and only the conning tower was above the surface, and the rest was awash with seawater. So they had to plug that hole, otherwise the ship was going to go down. So one of the volunteers, again a Chicago kid. I call him a kid because he was a kid at the time. His name was Zeke Lukosius, and he was the son of Lithuanian immigrants. He didn't even know how to swim, but what he had was a lot of guts. And so he went to the sea strainer, saw this hole, literally this hole with water gushing out, and he looks around. And he couldn't believe his luck, because there was the sea strainer cover lying a few feet away. And at first he thought, well, this is too easy. It's got to be a booby trap. And he really feared that the moment he lifted it up, it would blow up the boat. But it didn't. So he put the sea strainer lid down. He clamped it down, and the hole was plugged. So the immediate danger of sinking was, at least for a moment, eliminated thanks to the work of Zeke Lukosius.
When you come across all these details, all the facets of the story, well, let me approach it this way. So in the description of one of your other books, The Last Lincolns, on your website, and by the way, check out charleslachman.com, and that's where you're going to find all of his books available. But you mentioned it's a gripping page turner written by a TV producer with proven storytelling skills. So when you come across all these different details, the sea strainer, or even, talking about Gallery being a pilot, and I mean, all these different details, how do you decide? And Shane asked the question, all the different eureka moments that you're coming, all the different pages you're turning, and it's like, oh, how do you decide what to keep in and what to keep out?
Well, it's part of the craftsmanship of writing a fast-paced work of a narrative nonfiction. It's always about the story. It's always about turning that page and putting yourself. I think it's really important for a writer who's interested in the reader to put yourself in the reader's position. You're at home, and you got a lot of diversions and a lot of things you could do. You could watch TV. You could watch sports, and you could play with your kids. So you really have to have a compelling work to get somebody to sit down. I mean, it's a passive thing to do to read a book. But if you love reading, you still, as a writer, I think you have an obligation to be enticing and thrilling, and you want to experience. You just want to write in a compelling way, and that's what I struggle to do. And you want it to move along. You want it to be an exciting read, an adventure, if you will. I think a great book is an adventure. And at the end of the book, you really have to be kind of upset. Oh my, you kind of want to wish that there was more to it. And that's what I try to do.
One of the details you talk about is the fact that the U-505 kind of got the reputation of being a cursed U-boat. Bad luck, victim of a lot of sabotage by the French resistance at the maintenance pens in Lorient. But then the commander, prior to being captured, was a guy by you talk about kid. He was only 24 years old. Commander, is it Chech?
Yes, he does that.
And I'm sure, Shane, you might remember this when we were at the museum. John probably knows this. He commits suicide. He shoots himself.
Right. In the height of battle. I mean, imagine that. He was the youngest U-boat captain of the Kriegsmarine, the German Navy. And he had all the credentials to be a Nazi U-boat officer. His father was a naval officer. He was a graduate of the German Naval Academy, their equivalent of Annapolis. But he was not fit for command. He was imperious, heavy drinker. The crew despised him. He had very limited leadership capabilities. So here you have the scene where you're trying to cross the Bay of Biscay on your way to your mission, and you're getting pounded by British destroyers, and it's a life or death situation. You don't know whether you're going to make it. In the case of Peter Zesch, he lost his nerve, and he couldn't handle the intense pressure. And he took a Luger to his temple and pulled the trigger. And the most astonishing thing about that story, other than that, which is really pretty amazing, is that he did not quite end his life. He was exhibiting signs of the death rattle, and his men thought that he was going to give up the position of the ship with that noise he was making through British sonar. So they actually put a pillow on his face and smothered him. That's how much how the lack of respect and really hatred they had for their commanding officer. And then he was dead. And when they buried him at sea a few hours later, once the battle or the engagement was over, they didn't even stand at attention. They wrapped his body in some canvas and tossed him aside, and that was the end of that.
And those are the kind of details that I love about your book. Okay, so if anyone's familiar with the capture of the 505 and the fact that the U-505 was kind of like a cursed submarine and it had some bad luck, people may know that the previous skipper shot himself, committed suicide. but I never knew that the crew suffocated him afterwards.
Mm.
Yeah.
How do you come across a detail like that in your research?
Well, that particular bit of information came from a German crew member named Hans Gobler, who actually wrote a little memoir about his experiences on U-505. He was unrepentant believer in the Nazi Party. He was a mechanic on board U-505. After the war, he refused to participate in the denazification program that German sailors and soldiers were required to undergo. But funny thing about it is that he ended up living in the U.S. in his final years, and he actually visited the Chicago Museum a number of times. So that detail came from him.
What about the other? There was another fascinating detail, you know, talking about, let me pull up his picture real quick, going back to gallery, you know, everybody, or not everybody, but if you are aware of the story, you know, Gallery was the captain and commander of the Guadalcanal, one of the only carriers to run around the Atlantic. But and I didn't know this, he was a pilot. But when the Guadalcanal first went out and started conducting flight operations, he was the first one to take off and land on the Guadalcanal?
Right. The Guadalcanal set sail on its shakedown cruise in 1943. And it went from Vancouver down the coast, the West Coast, and ended up in San Diego, where the fighter planes, torpedo planes, and bombers were put on board for the first time. But he was determined to prove to these fancy fly boys, that he knew as much about flying as they did. So he was determined to become the first officer to take flight off the deck of the Guadalcanal.
See, I love details like that. And for those of you that are just joining us, we are talking to Charles Lachman, who recently published the book Codename Nemo. The link, if you want to purchase it or check out the audiobook, is in the description below. I highly recommend it. And it's those kinds of details that I was never aware of that you're going to find in this book. I think they're fascinating. I mean, I made a list of them, and I don't want to keep you all night, but I mean, you're talking about things like, I mean, the junior officer, one of the junior officers on the Guadalcanal was actually a millionaire agent for the film stars in Hollywood.
Oh, I love this guy.
Yeah.
He was the creator. He was a top flight Hollywood agent. He was married to a beautiful movie star. He had a magnificent home in Beverly Hills. And but he was also a patriot. He was, I think, 44. I think my memory is correct, when he was in the Naval Reserves, and then he joined the Guadalcanal. So when it was in San Diego on the shakedown cruise, he decided to show Captain Gallery and the other officers a good time. So he got them all on board a bus and drove to have them driven to his home in Beverly Hills, the mansion, nice digs, and then he got them a tour on a movie set where a silly World War II romantic comedy was being filmed, and then he took them to a nightclub where Luella Parsons, the famous Hollywood gossip columnist, she was notorious for a poison pen. Never wrote a sentence that didn't have edge to it. But she was so thrilled to see these naval officers taking a 1 or 2 day break from the war to participate in this Hollywood party. But the funny thing about it is that Gallery was really worried that his wife back home in Virginia would be reading Luella Parsons' column and read all about his night with these Hollywood starlets.
It's a great story, and it goes in all kinds of different directions. So I want to remind everyone, we're talking to Charles, who wrote Codename Nemo, Now, before we let you go, and we're already going a little bit long because I said I promised I'd only keep you a half hour, but I want to ask you about, and okay. So I heard about your book when you appeared on the CBS Mornings show. There's you with Gail King, Vlad Dutier, and Jerika Duncan talking about this incredible story, this incredible book. And the best way I can ask this question, indulge me here. I'm gonna play this little segment here, and then I'm gonna hit you with this question.
The board and took control and found this treasure trove of intelligence.
It is amazing, Charles. I tell you, this is a movie. As I was reading, I think this is definitely a movie. You know people, you got to figure this out. But let's talk about the relationship.
Okay, so many of these stories.
That's sweet.
Well, first of all, okay, I'm shocked that Gail. It appears she even read the book. I wouldn't think these people would have time to read the book. It appears she read the book and she was as fascinated as I was. Now, I've talked to John, I've talked to Shane, I've talked to Connor in the past about different things. You hear it all the time. This should be a movie. Why isn't this a movie?
Well, it only came out a month ago, so give me a little chance to sell it.
No excuse. We don't want excuses here.
Okay. One thing I was amused by watching that clip is that my death grip, my hands on my knees during the interview. I thought I was going to be strangling the blood flow on my leg. But no, Gail was great, and people say this after reading the book. It's got to be a movie. It's got all the elements. Funny thing about that CBS Mornings appearance is that the other guest was Glenn Powell, this hot. He's not an up-and-coming star. He's a huge star in Hollywood. And I saw that he was going to be a guest on the show. I said, okay, I'm going to get the book to this guy. I am determined before he leaves the studio to tuck the book under his arms. Glenn, sorry to interrupt you, but you got to read the book. So it was much my disappointment that he was not actually in the studio, but it was a taped interview. So I get the book to him. But it's a great story. It's got everything: a thrilling adventure, great American heroes. It's an untold story. It's got action on the high seas, a Battle of the Atlantic, brilliant characters in the form of Captain Gallery and this brave American forgotten hero, Lieutenant David, and a lot of really mean-spirited German Nazis.
Do you think the audience to justify a World War II movie is shrinking?
Well, look at the success of Masters of the Air. That's on now. It's streaming now. It's a big success. Look at Tom Hanks and his devotion to World War II stories and telling the story of America through the World War II experience. I don't think people get tired of reading about World War II or seeing movies about it. I know there's this big movie coming out soon on the Nuremberg trial. This is an experience that hundreds of millions of people experience, and a lot of them, most of them are all gone now, but their children and their grandchildren all heard about it. And one of the thrilling things about my research in Codename Nemo was reaching out to the relatives, the descendants of the 9 members of the raiding party, and how their grandchildren are so engrossed in the story, how they've made the journey to Chicago to pay homage to their granddads and to see a U-505 with their own eyes. How just thrilled they are that they are from the same blood of these really brave, unsung, humble heroes who did so much to bring an end to World War II.
I would love to see a movie made out of this, and yeah, you being a producer.
Oh boy, and you're laying it on here.
Well,
Charles, you have to do this now.
Not so much that. I'm just like, how hard is it? I don't even know. Do you have to buy the rights? I mean, to publish a book is, you could self-publish a book. It's incredibly easy. The process of having to go through a publishing house, finding an editor, those days are gone. But making a movie is still that's still a pretty big endeavor. And do you ever see this seeing a screen at all?
I hope so. I think it deserves to be a movie, a great movie. I hope it gets made. But I know how difficult it is to do that. There are a lot of superhero movies. This is a big budget movie. It's not cheap to film a battle in the Atlantic Ocean involving a U-boat and 5 destroyer escorts and an aircraft carrier. You do wonders with digital technology now and special effects. It's still a very expensive movie to make. But having said that, it's also I think it would make a boatload, forgive the pun, a boatload of money, and whoever is daring enough to finance it.
Shane,
I've got
John,
a destroyer escort you could use.
what's that, John?
I've got a destroyer escort you could use.
Yeah, right in Albany, right? Yeah, just sitting right there in Albany. Before we let Charles go, Shane, John, Connor, any other questions you want to hit him with?
Yes, actually. Have you got any ideas yet of what your next book will be? Are you going to stick with the World War II theme, or are you going to go with something completely different?
Funny you should ask. Definitely World War II. I'm in the early stages of it. Bad luck to talk in any detail about it, but
no, it's not bad luck at all. Go ahead.
Sticking with World War II, I just found a unique story again in the never having been told category, and I'm just thrilled to be focused on that in my part-time endeavors and on weekends. Weekend warrior, so to speak.
Army, Navy, or Air Corps?
Army.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, definitely looking forward to it.
And also, Charles, I'm involved with I'd like to talk offline regarding the Grover Cleveland book. I'm involved with an organization that studies Buffalo presidential history. So there's a reason why Grover Cleveland never really came back to Buffalo after his presidency. And I'm sure you cover that in your book.
Yes. A lot of people in Buffalo don't like that book because of all its exposés and revelations, but I totally understand their point of view.
No, I love it. But I'd like to talk to you more about that if possible offline.
Charles, do I have your permission to share your email address with Shane?
Sure.
Are you sure about that?
Do you? Thank you.
You regret that? No problem.
Oh, no,
Thank you very much.
no.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Let's see. Charles Lachman, we're thrilled to have you on. Author of Codename Nemo, The Hunt for a Nazi U-Boat, and The Elusive Enigma Machine. Let me pull up. I want to pull up. There we go. Oh, where'd it go? There we go. Yeah, Codename Nemo, The Hunt for a Nazi U-Boat, and The Elusive Enigma Machine. If you want to get a copy of this or check it out for Kindle through Amazon, the link is in the description of this video below. I'm really enjoying the audiobook. And oh, by the way, the audiobook is actually narrated by one of my favorite narrators. And he does a lot of different, well, I know him from World War II stuff, but Kari Marshall, I think is his name. Is that right?
He did a great job. Great job.
I mean, so I've only known him for like the Ben Franklin autobiography, Miracle at Midway, Lost Airmen, Invasion of Normandy, I think. And yeah, so I was thrilled to see. Do you get to pick the narrator, or
no? A company buys the rights, in this case Dreamscape, and they selected the narrator, and to my delight, it turned out to be this wonderful voice actor who just does a terrific job. I love it when he's reading the book and suddenly he goes into some German dialogue and he's speaking in a German accent. He's great.
Yeah, he's fantastic. So many of these books, I mean, not everyone can be a great narrator, but he really adds to the story. So I'm enjoying it quite a bit. Check out Charles Lachman's website, www.charleslachman.com, or as I said a few moments ago, check out the description for this video below, and you will find a link for that book. Charles, thanks for joining us tonight. We're thrilled to have you with us.
Well, it was a lot of
Thank you
fun.
so much,
I
Charles.
appreciate the invitation and the conversation. I thought you guys were great.
Are you in the studio of Inside Edition right now?
It looks like it.
It does, doesn't it? Hold on a second.
There it is.
Really?
I'm the only one left.
I was gonna say, where the hell is everybody?
Where's Deborah Norville? Come on.
Yeah. I think that's fantastic. And when you get your next project underway, complete, whatever, I hope you'll let us know.
See you in a couple of years.
Yeah. Oh, really? No. All right, fine. Fair enough. All right. Saying goodbye to Charles Lachman. We're gonna let you go and talk behind your back. All right.
Feel free.
Thank you.
Thank
You have a
Thank you,
great night.
Charles.
Thanks for your time. Well, that was cool.
Indeed.
You need to stop getting authored because I am way behind on my reading list.
Oh,
already.
totally. Yeah, me too. Totally.
It's not like we have ships to take care of or anything.
Well, when I came across, like I said, when I saw his appearance on CBS,
Can't really call it a friendship about some of the soldiers.
when I saw him appear on CBS Morning News, I had to track him down and see if I could get him to join us because I thought he was great, and the book is fantastic. So I just hope it really does well. Right now, it's actually doing well. I think I saw that's already got 1,250 reviews on Amazon.
Wow. Great.
Yeah, and it's only been out for a month. So, yeah, cool stuff. And
I'll give it a read.
yeah, and the other thing too is, John being on a destroyer escort has some familiarity with the story. Of course, as I said, Shane and we were at the museum in September, not of last year, but the year before. So we already know some details, probably John especially, but a lot of the stuff in this book are stuff that I'd never heard of before. Like the U-505 skipper, he committed suicide. I thought he just committed suicide. I didn't realize he didn't die.
Right.
And his own crew
Yeah.
murdered him. They
Well, I don't
suffocated him.
remember that story with when we were there and we were talking to the curator there.
Nope.
And it just, I think I always want to tie it back to the testament of what was happening to the Kriegsmarine at that time, that you have a very overwhelmed young commanding officer of a boat like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they were just pumping people in to my guesstimate, right? That they needed just commanding officers, and they would put people that potentially weren't fully prepared or ready for the job.
He was only 24 years old.
Yeah, I mean, what experience does he have, for God's sakes?
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't know. I'm going to have to read his other book, Shane, because you mentioned that there's a connection to Buffalo with Grover Cleveland.
Well, Grover Cleveland was from Buffalo. We're the
I
only,
didn't know that.
we're the only city in America. Now you're getting me on my presidential high horse here. We're the only city in America that has had two presidents come from that city. And then, of course, an assassination and an inauguration. So that's why we have a museum here with Buffalo's presidential connections. And yeah, Grover Cleveland is, cut his teeth here in Buffalo and moved up. He was sheriff of Erie County and then governor of New York and then president, all within a 2 or 3 year span.
Jeez.
But that book covers a scandal and he never came back to Buffalo after his presidency, only once for about 5 hours to go to a funeral of a friend. And then he hightailed it back to Princeton, New Jersey.
So when I pull up hold on a second. When I pull up an image like this, when you talk about A Secret Life, the lies and scandals of President Grover Cleveland, you know exactly what he's talking about.
I do.
All right. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's an amazing story. And
and the fact that Charles is in New York, maybe you can make a new connection.
Well, yeah, I mean, we have that book everywhere in the museum, and everyone talks about it. But I just didn't put 2 and 2 together that he was the actual author. So when I saw that, I said, "Oh my god!"
You mean you have this exact book in there?
Oh yeah, that book is well known throughout our board of trustees. And anyway, we don't have to go on that. But yes, I mean that is a
you can thank me later. Thank me later. You know, I'm a wine drinker. You can thank me later.
Why were you drinking wine at 8 o'clock in the morning when you saw this interview and brought him on, or what do you mean by I can thank you later? Oh, got it. Buying you wine or something
for making a connection like this.
Yes, thank you, because we might be interested in talking to him about this book and maybe anyway.
Yeah,
but,
John and Connor knew what I was talking about. All right, let's see now. Moving on to we're gonna do.
Before we get into the conversations, I was looking online while we were talking to see if there were any other interesting U-boat capture stories. And I learned about this one. If you ever get the chance, look up U-570.
Yeah.
She was captured in August of 1941 by the Royal Navy, and she was recommissioned as HMS Graf. And she would serve in the Royal Navy till 1944 when she ran aground, and they just opted not to refloat her because they didn't have the ability to maintain her anymore. So I was just looking, I was like, I've never heard this story. There was a U-boat in British service for much of World War II. And I thought, oh, that's a really interesting story.
I knew about the capture. I did not know the British recommissioned her, though.
Yeah, they recommissioned her.
I did not
talk
know
about a revenge ship, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I'd heard about the again, similar story. So I was like, oh, that's another U-boat story that could become a comedy or something. I could see a comedy being made of that one.
Real quick, before we move on to Shane at the Buffalo Naval Park, anyone watching tonight, if there's any books that you've read or that you're curious about and you want us to have on, you know what? Send me an email or, throw a comment in the comments section and, let us know. It's pretty easy to get authors to come on now just because we've been doing this so long. So Ken at historyxchannel.com, send me an email and we'll see what we can do to get people on.
And now the SecNav. That's what I got.
What?
Nothing.
Oh, Secretary of Navy. Yeah.
I know. It's still...
All right. Anyway. Shane Stevenson, curator, Buffalo and Erie County Naval and Military Park. What's going on over there?
Go ahead. Well, we are, of course, we're into our season. It's crazy now. We had a great 4th of July weekend. We had a tall ship in town. We just had a lot of activities going on. For me, I'm doing a lot of public interfacing now. This is the time, curator tours, just standing somewhere on the ship, giving people information. So it's really like visitor engagement time for me now, as opposed to like in the winter time, just kind of working in the collection. So I always kind of break it up to like summer and winter duties kind of thing.
Have you had a need to sleep on board the Little Rock yet in your little?
Yes, there were a couple of times. Yes, we had we had a radio association, ham radio group that's been on board since 1980, and they reach out to people all over the world and their ham radio stations. And then I did a 6-part, which I'm releasing this Sunday as episode 1. I did a 6-part series on USS Little Rock's archaeology and the modifications of that from 1945 to, say, 1975. And I work with a guy named Lucas, who's a museum professional, and he spent some time at HMS Victory working under the archaeologists there. And so he learned ship archaeology and ship architecture, and and so we did a 6-part series, and we're releasing the first episode this Sunday, and then the consecutive 5 other Sundays at 8 p.m. we'll be releasing those episodes, and that's something we're really looking forward to.
What time on Sunday?
8 p.m.
Okay.
you know, the other museum ships have 7 and 7:15 and 7:30 and 7:45 and all that stuff. So,
and that'll be on the YouTube channel. All everyone has to do is go into the search bar on YouTube and just type in Buffalo Naval Park, and it comes right up.
Yeah, and these 6 episodes kind of take us through the ship, and yeah, it's really looking forward to hearing the reception and seeing, because we want to maybe get more into these like short series kind of videos, and this might be a good entrance way into that. So thank you everyone in advance.
Absolutely, yeah.
So yeah,
so that'll be Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern time, Buffalo Naval Park YouTube channel.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Anything else you want to add?
No, just a lot of work going on. You know, we have reenactors coming. Oh, there's something. We have reenactors coming, not this coming weekend, but next weekend. They're a living history preservation group from, you know, around the Cleveland area. And they are actually going to be walking around and doing some duties and greeting people and having general quarters. And they'll actually be cooking food, which is kind of cool. It's not for the visitors yet. We might do that next year, but they'll be cooking food in our galley in the USS, one of the main galley in the USS Little Rock, for themselves. And so people will be able to go through and talk to them. And so they'll be there from Friday the 19th through Sunday the 21st.
Connor, thanks for pulling that question up. Do you get recognized from the YouTube channel?
Oh, do guests recognize? Yeah, you know, it's probably once a week. I'll get someone say, "Oh, you're the guy on TV," or "You're the guy on YouTube," right? And it's always nice to meet people. So I don't think anyone's gonna pull out a knife and shank me. So that's nice. But yeah, I'll stop for a minute and say hi. What's your handle? You know, I'll see if I can remember their. You know, if I've seen them make comments and stuff before. So yeah, about once a week or so, usually someone might say something.
Mm-hmm. And it looks like John's been recognized a couple times too, but he's like 6'6", so it's hard to miss him.
This John?
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
6'1".
6'1".
He's taller than me.
Still taller than me.
And me.
Yeah.
So as for me, I have not been recognized from YouTube, but I have been recognized through our reviews. There have been 2 occasions that I know of where people have come to the ship and actually said, "Hey, is Connor available?" Because the reviews have said he's a really great tour guide.
Okay.
So I've had that happen, and I did have someone recognize me for my work with museum ships back about 2 years ago. But yeah, that's about it. So we don't have a YouTube channel yet. So I haven't been recognized for the YouTube part of it.
It's better than someone coming on board and Connor coming up and saying, "All right, you know, we're going to get ready." And then somebody says, "Is there anybody else that could give us a tour?" Yeah. So it's better than it's like, "Anybody else besides this guy?" So yeah, I suppose that's pretty good that you're getting recognized for the quality of your tours.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to John Epp, curator at the USS Slater in Albany, New York. Let's pull up that picture. There we go. John Epp, curator, USS Slater, Albany, New York. The YouTube channel, search for USS Slater in the search bar, comes up, and they've exceeded 5,000 subscribers.
Oh, nice.
On YouTube, so you guys are marching along.
Yeah.
What's going on over there?
Yeah, we need to start pushing YouTube more. It's not a very large priority for us. So we're hoping to start doing that a little harder going forward. Nothing really new going on. General maintenance, tour season's in full swing. It's 100 degrees inside the ship every day of the week. No air conditioning. But just another day, I guess.
100 degrees inside the ship.
Yes. It's usually about 10 degrees hotter inside the ship.
You guys should do a video like I did with the thermal stresses, and I had like a thermal gun or something, you know, and then we can do a comparison. That's interesting.
The deck usually is around 130 degrees.
Yeah, really.
That was a month ago, though.
I remember the first video that Shane and I collaborated on. I sent an email to Shane, didn't really know him, hadn't really talked to him or anything like that. And I said, can you help me out with this subject? And it was about the 52 mount, the second mount, 5-inch mount on the Sullivans.
You called it a turret.
Well, that back then I did. I've learned that lesson. Don't do that. But so the video that Shane, actually, he did several videos. He was a great sport, but he recorded it. It had to be the middle of July.
Sure, I was probably glistening like in every video that I've done ever since. But go ahead. Sorry.
And you were such a good sport to do all that. And so you're one of the part of the video, you're out in front of the mount on the deck. It's sun's blazing. Then you're inside the mount, and it's got to be an oven in there. And then you go down to the handling room or something like that. And it's got to be super hot down there.
Really? Yeah.
And this guy's going all out.
But see, for yes, thank you. But for John, I mean, your office is. What do you do in your office there down in near aft? The aft part of the ship.
I take breaks. I'll come up to the building when there's air conditioning.
Oh, so you're just working in that temperature?
Yeah, you get used to it.
What?
That's true. You
do. They come check on me every once in a while, make sure I'm alive.
Make sure he's not dehydrated. All right. To check out their YouTube channel, like I said, search for USS Slater in the search bar, and their content will come up. You can also check out their website, ussslater.org. And if you want to support the Slater or the Buffalo Naval Park at buffalonavalpark.org, that's one of the best ways to do it. Check out their website. Opportunities to donate are right there. All right. And moving on to Connor, Transportation Museum.
Hey, Connor.
Thunder Bay.
Yeah.
Okay. For Ken's benefit.
Yeah.
Can you pronounce your last name again?
Nope. Please? I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. It's Connor Kilgore.
Okay. So you.
So Kilgore is acceptable.
Oh, okay. Good. All right.
It is acceptable. It's whether you want to go with the anglicized name or the more Scottish original name. So Kilgour is the original pronunciation, but both are acceptable.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
I'm good with Kilgore.
Yeah, I'm not upset either way. I've heard it both ways. Yeah, so here at the Alexander Henry, we, just like you guys, are right into our season now. Our summer students are all at work, so a lot of pressure has come off me so I can start doing other projects on the ship. So basically, our big event that's coming up in 10 days' time on July 20th is Coast Guard Day. We will be celebrating the Canadian Coast Guard yet again. This will be our third season doing it. And this year will also have a big announcement. Should be quite exciting. The Deputy Superintendent of the Canadian Coast Guard for the Great Lakes region will be in attendance, as well as members from our local Coast Guard station, and a number of other people. Will also have Parks Canada in attendance this year, and various politicians and dignitaries, and it'll be a pretty big event. We're quite looking forward to it. People are welcome to come down. There will be an opening ceremony at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which will be followed by a cake cutting, as well as free tours to the public for that day. So if you want to come down and see a 66-year-old icebreaker free of charge, that'd be a great day to do it.
Hey, Connor.
Yes.
Where is the Alexander Henry located?
So the Alexander Henry is located in Thunder Bay, Ontario, at the Pool 6 site on the southern side of the Thunder Bay Marina. Just go down the dirt road and you'll find it. Yeah. So on the 18th, we will be noting the ship's 66th anniversary since it first hit the water. And on the 30th, we'll mark its commissioning date for the next year, so 55th year, or 65th year. Everything is in July with this ship. Seriously, like everything. All our anniversary. All right. Yeah, so So that will be also a thing we will mark when the time comes. We also have our gift shop is finally open again. Not to shill, but we have not had our gift shop open for the first half of the season. And that's because we were building a new structure, and it's open as of late last week. And it's just in time as we are now open 7 days a week. So our museum is now open all 7 days of the week, and it will be that way until probably the end of August, early September. So whenever our students go home. I know that's like only a month and a half, but it's our peak season is during that period. So we try and capture that.
For those of you that aren't aware, Connor is also one of the administrators for the Museum Ships Facebook group. So if you enjoy this type of content, you enjoy connecting with other people that are just, geeking out over things like museum ships, check out the Facebook group Museum Ships. Like I said, Connor, one of the administrators. And I wish I had the picture. I can't remember. I'm assuming you posted it in Museum Ships, but here, hold on a second. Let me pull up that picture. So you see how big the Alexander Henry is. Pretty good size. But then you posted on Facebook somewhere of one of the cruise ships that came in. Yeah. I mean, the thing is absolutely huge. And you see this little tiny red dot in front of the cruise ship, and it's the Alexander Henry.
Yes. We post that from our official Facebook to Museum Ships.
Is that what it was? Okay.
Yeah. So we share our dock with the cruise ship dock for the city of Thunder Bay. And the last 3 years, we've had ships from Viking, Viking Octantis and Viking Polaris, docking directly behind us. And they're like 30,000 tons or more. And we're this 2,100 ton icebreaker that's in front of them, and we do have the thicker hull though. Just saying, but it's quite beneficial for us. The guests off the cruise ships have really enjoyed it, and we have, especially from Viking Polaris, had officers come to visit the Henry, and in response gave us a tour as well. So we've been quite excited to have them here in the city because it has brought attention to us, and it has brought attention to the waterfront in general. So that's something we've been more than happy to work with our friends at the City of Thunder Bay and the Port Authority on over the last 3 years now.
Pretty soon, Shane and I are both going to be old enough to enjoy a Viking cruise. My ties.
We'll sit on the deck with
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, when I got my tour of the Viking Polaris, if I had not been standing next to the captain the whole time, odds are I would have been kicked off for being underdressed because you're in your T-shirt or whatever type of stuff. You're dressing as part of your uniform, and you don't fit.
Oh, so they're
that particular group of passengers were keeping an eye on us.
Copy that. All right. That's Connor, Transportation Museum of Thunder Bay, www.tmtb.ca. And how do they find the official Facebook page?
So, we gotta just mark this down. You can find us as the Transportation Museum of Thunder Bay on Facebook as well as Instagram. You can also find us posting quite frequently on Museum Ships. Yes, I'm shilling everything now. And you can also find the Henry's page itself on museumships.us, which is the accompanying website for our Facebook page. Or not Facebook page, but Facebook group. So there's plenty of things to read about the Henry out there. And there'll be plenty more coming soon.
Excellent.
And purchase merchandise like I Love Alexander Henry. Hats and gear.
Yes. Do I have one of those hats nearby? Yes, I do.
I have one of those.
Just looking at mine the other day.
Yeah. Disclaimer: we actually only have 4 of these left, and they are not on sale currently.
What? Oh, jeez.
I can send you one, Ken. Do you want? You're the only one here who doesn't have one now.
No, that's fine. If you only got 4 left, leave them for the paying guests. I appreciate that. CC, thanks for the nice comment. Always appreciate the kind words. And finally, I want to
What's
say,
going on with you?
What?
What's going on with you?
Oh, on History X. Let's see. What are you doing? What could I mention? I mean, we always have new stuff on. If anyone had seen the video about Flight 19, the lost flight in the Bermuda Triangle, and the veteran that we interviewed, who was the last person alive in radio contact with them, I am going to be doing some more videos about that guy because Jim Plummer actually flew blimps and attacked German U-boats across the Atlantic. So he's got an amazing story. Going to be doing more videos, so keep an eye out on that. That'll be coming up on History X in the next couple of weeks.
Forward to it.
Yeah, so he was a really interesting guy. All right, so I want to say again, thanks to Charles Lachman for joining us tonight and talking about his book, Codename Nemo, The Hunt for a Nazi U-Boat and the Elusive Enigma Machine. As I've said several times, check out the description of this video if you're interested in the book. It's fascinating. The audio book, I'm loving it. Matter of fact, when I jump off of this episode tonight, I'll be connecting more with the audio book, and it's a great story. So definitely check it out. And I think, Connor, did you just flash up his website, www.charleslachman.com?
Give me a second. I'll find it again.
He's got some other great books as well, but this Codename Nemo is fantastic. So thanks to him for joining us tonight and giving us his time. If there isn't anything else, my name is Ken Stano with the YouTube channel History X, also historyxchannel.com. Thank you, everybody, for watching tonight. Have a great evening.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.